All right, let's get into this. The Quran is full of these incredibly powerful metaphors, right? But one of the most central, one you see referenced all the time, is this image of a community holding onto a single rope to save itself from falling into a pit. So today, we're going to unravel that very metaphor. What is this rope, really?
And here it is, the verse at the heart of it all. Qur'an, chapter 3, verse 103. It's a command, and it's super direct. Hold firm to the rope of God altogether and do not become divided. I mean, it sounds simple enough. It's an instruction for survival. But it's also a bit of a mystery.
You're left asking, okay, but what is this rope? Is it a person? Is it an institution? A set of rules? And how on earth does just holding onto it stop something as messy and as human as social division? To figure this out, we're going to have to put on our detective hats and follow the clues that are hidden right inside the text itself. So our first move is to break down the central metaphor. We're going to let the Quran actually define its own terms for us, by looking at how it uses these key words in other places. This is the best way to get to the real meaning, straight from the source.
The word we're zooming in on is habl. That's the Arabic for rope. And at its most basic, literal level, it means a physical cord, something you can actually grab. It implies a bond, a real connection. And that's our first clue. This isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It's meant to feel tangible.
And what's so fascinating is how the Quran builds on this meaning, layer by layer. In one place, a khaba is a literal rope made of fiber. In another, it's a magical rope that sorcerers use in a performance. And then, get this, just a few verses away from our main passage, khaba is used to describe a covenant, a bond of protection. It even puts a rope from God right next to a rope from people. So you see the range? It goes from a physical thing to a binding social agreement.
Okay, and here it is. This might be the biggest clue of all. In a totally different chapter, the Quran uses the exact same idea of holding firm. But this time, it tells you exactly what to hold on to, what has been revealed. The text itself, the revelation, becomes the object that you're supposed to grip. Suddenly, the mystery of the rope starts to get a whole lot clearer.
So when you connect all the dots, the picture becomes crystal clear. The rope of God points directly to the revelation, to the Qur'an itself. Think about it. It's the one concrete thing extended from God that every single person can grab onto. It's a shared, objective source of guidance, and the logic follows. Holding onto it together creates unity, and letting go leads to the very fragmentation the verse warns us about.
All right, so if the rope is the text, what about the pit? What are we being saved from? What are the real stakes here? Because the verse isn't just a friendly suggestion, it gives this terrifying warning about what happens if you let go. It says the community was on the edge of a pit of fire. I mean, that is a powerful, dramatic image. But when you hear pit of fire, you're probably thinking about the afterlife, right? But what if this is another metaphor? What if it's describing something people were experiencing right here, right then, in their own society? And the clue is right there in the grammar. Check it out. It's past tense. You were on the edge of this pit. This isn't some far-off future threat. It's describing the social reality they were already living in. And what was that reality? The verse tells us, plain as day. It was when you were enemies. The pit of fire is directly equated with a state of social hostility.
And look at this contrast. It could not be more stark. The condition of being in the pit, it's defined by enmity and division. The rescue, which holding the rope makes possible, that's defined by brotherhood and unity. So the pit of fire isn't literal flames. It's the social hell of a fragmented community at war with itself. It's what happens when you let go of that shared rope.
The logic here is actually incredibly simple and powerful. The state of being enemies is the condition of being on the edge of the pit. They're one and the same. And the rescue isn't some magical event from the sky, it's the internal state of having unified hearts. So the warning is basically, don't go back to being divided, because that is how you fall right back into the pit.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. We know the rope is the revelation and the pit is social division. But how? How does holding a text actually bring people together? What's the psychological mechanism at play here? Let's dig in. The whole process starts with a concept called the qalb, which is the Quranic word for heart. But you have to understand, when the Quran says heart, it doesn't just mean your feelings. The qalb is like the central processing unit of a person. It's the center of your intellect, your understanding, your entire orientation to the world. It's where the revelation is supposed to land.
And what's wild is that the qalb isn't static. It's not just one thing. It can be in all these different states. It can be sealed or locked up, so guidance just can't get in. It can be hardened like a rock, totally unresponsive. Or it can be softened and become receptive, ready to change. The state of your qalb determines basically everything.
This leads us to this amazing verb the Qur'an uses for creating unity, alafa. Now, this doesn't just mean to agree on something. It means to compose, to join different things into a coherent whole. The Qur'an uses the same root to describe God joining separate, scattered clouds to form a single massive storm system. We're talking about a deep, structural binding, not just a temporary truce.
And here's the kicker. The Qur'an says this flat out. This kind of unity is impossible to create with human power. If you had spent everything on earth, you could not have brought their hearts together. Why? Because you can't buy a change in someone's internal state. You can't force someone's qalb to soften. That process happens on a much deeper level.
This diagram just brings it all home. It perfectly summarizes the whole mechanism. On one side, you've got these closed, hard hearts. Internally, they're oriented inwards. They're full of ill will. So the space between people naturally fills up with enmity. That's the path to the pit. But on the other side, when hearts become soft and open by orienting to that same shared source, the rope, the ill will is removed, and the space between them fills with a genuine bond. Unity just emerges from that internal shift.
So, let's zoom out. What's the big picture takeaway here? After deconstructing this whole metaphor of gripping a single rope, what's the core message?
Here's the bottom line. According to this Quranic model, real, lasting unity isn't something you can force from the outside. It's not about strict laws or shared rituals or even a common enemy. It's an emergent property, which is a fancy way of saying it's what naturally bubbles up to the surface when a group of individuals all choose to soften their hearts and orient themselves toward the exact same source. They align, not because they're being forced to, but because they are all voluntarily facing the same direction.
And that leaves us with a really big and maybe challenging question for our own lives. If this ancient text is right, if true community is really built from the inside out, based on a shared internal orientation instead of external pressure, what does that mean for how we're trying to build our families, our organizations, and our societies today? It's definitely something to think about.